my name is Clara, and I want to talk about the racialization of Asians, and specifically the discrimination that Asians face. Well, wait a second. Discrimination? Asians don't face discrimination. Well, at least not like the way blacks, Latinos, or Native Americans do. Yes, I've heard it all. Asians are successful. We don't need the assistance from the government to succeed. We are the model minority. But that's just it. The title as model minority is exactly how Asians are being discriminated. First off, the label Asians is used to describe a very heterogeneous population. This assumes cultural homogeneity. Cultural homogeneity is the idea where a population is amassed into a single entity when in fact the population is comprised of multiple different nuances. When people think of Asians, they automatically associate the label Chinese, Japanese, or Korean. However, we are made up of much more. There is also Vietnamese, Filipino, Malaysian, Laotians, Cambodians, Hmong, and so many more. Asians are comprised of different histories, experience, and oppressions across the Asian American population, but yet we are lumped together as a distinct entity. This means that not all Asians are created equal. While there are obviously successful Asian people within the US, there are also many others who struggle. Not all Asians have achieved the American dream. But how can that be? Asians have been proven to have higher median income than white families. Looking closer at the statistics, this is attributed to the fact that Asian families tend to have more members working. If the median personnel income is compared, Asians actually earn less than whites. Also, Asian families tend to live in metropolitan areas. This is where the pay can be more, but the cost of living is also higher. Also, because Asians is a heterogeneous population, different groups are more successful than others. Chinese, on average, are well educated and prosperous, whereas the small numbers of Cambodians, Laotian, and Hmong are struggling. Many of them are forced to work as janitors, waiters, busboys, or go into business themselves. In fact, 40% of all Vietnamese refugees are reliant on public assistance in California, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. In addition to this, Asians are underrepresented in the workplace, especially in top jobs such as CEOs, board members, or high-level supervisors. This is just like other minorities such as blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. Asians especially receive discrimination through education. Affirmative action was put in place to help protect minorities and to ensure that they are not discriminated from receiving equal access to quality education. This was focused on minorities that have explicitly been wronged by the US government in the past. Despite meeting all of these qualifications, Asians are not protected under affirmative action. Other races had historical discrimination through slavery, the Mexican-American War, and the displacement of Native Americans. But Asians were victims too. They have been on the receiving end of heinous hate crimes such as experiencing the largest mass lynching ever in American history, in which 17 Chinese were murdered in 1871. By being the only race to be legally prohibited from entering the US through the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which prohibited Chinese immigration, and also facing unfair mass detainment through the internment of 120,000 Japanese Americans in the Second World War. The hate that Asians receive is often disregarded due to the delusion of success achieved by a select few within the Asian population. Not only are we disregarded as a minority in need of protection or help, we're also held to higher expectations. Asian Americans need 140 SAT points out of 1,600 more than whites to get a place at a private university, whereas blacks need 310 fewer points in comparison. As a result of this, Asians' parenting also isn't getting more relaxed. It's probably getting stricter because parents realize they're going to have to work harder to meet the rising standards set for Asians. These expectations are also materialized through media. In the new TV series Fresh Off the Boat, the mother of the family is seen pushing the kids to continuously meet these high standards with the goal of achieving scholarships to attend college.
School is too easy.
Just when you think you've won the game, this trick done changed the rules.
Eddie, don't call your mother a trick.
You need to make school more challenging, or else my son will fall behind.
I'm sorry, there's not much I can do about a straight-A student.
Well, is there extra school? Where is the closest CLC?
Oh, no.
What's CLC?
Chinese Learning Center, an after-school program for reading, math, science, and violin.
Even when the kids do attain her expectations, they're only set up to meet even higher goals. This sets up a continuous cycle of having to meet more and more expectations, and an eventual invitation for failure. It is not fair to assume that all Asians perform well in school. Vietnamese Americans possess only a 20% college degree attainment, which is less than half of other Asian American ethnic groups. Laotian, Cambodians, and Hmong are even lower than 10%. In fact, Southeast Asians have the highest high school dropout rates in the country. But what's worse is that the benefit of additional education is not equal for all races. Whites make more with equal amount of education. For example, for whites, they get an extra $2,088 per year in salary for every additional education, whereas Japanese only get $438, Chinese get $320, and blacks receive $284 more per year in salary. So with such a disparity in actual success and perceived success, why was the model minority title created? The term was first introduced in 1966 in the New York Times to act as a complement to the Asian American community. However, this was a false perception. According to Ariana Karamat, writer for the Audrey magazine, the term model minority was created in the 1960s civil rights movement by William Peterson to demonstrate to the African American community that the American dream is possible through hard work and cooperation, just like the Asians. The title encouraged Asian Americans to stay out of the civil rights movement if they wanted to keep the title. Lastly, the title promoted a division between minorities. Karaman explained that the term model minority pits minorities against each other and creates animosity. But by not banding together, the minorities then have less strength and power to overturn the racism that they all face. However, society is not the only one to blame for these assumptions. Asians have perpetrated their condition by trying to match the model minority concept. Kai-Min Ko, a Taiwanese American author, says that by eating, shopping, working, owning businesses, studying, and living in communities where white supremacy is the dominant operating racial framework, gives into the oppression that we face. Model minority is used historically and presently as a tool designed to protect institutionalized white supremacy and to validate other forms of racism. The model minority myth erases shared histories of oppression and solidarity. The success of certain groups of Asian Americans was contrasted with the failure of other races. Therefore, in Marcuse's work, An Essay on Liberation, he says that people of minority should not give in, and that to regain control, people must take control over the language that is used to describe the minority. In our case, we taking control of the term model minority. And this is exactly what Asian Americans have slowly but gradually have started to do. The New York Times published a column by Nicholas Kristof, who wrote a piece titled The Asian Advantage. Through his publication, Kristof addressed the success of Asians is attributed to the East Asian emphasis of Confucian value of education, familial sacrifices, and positive stereotypes. He says that Asian American students are supported by a stereotype promise, and that assumes that Asians are innately smart and hardworking. His argument perpetrated what William Peterson sought out to do, to pit minorities against each other, particularly Asians and other races. To counteract this, the movement Model Minority Mutiny took over Twitter. During the advocacy moment of #Black Lives Matter, Asian advocates demonstrated their support for the end of African American oppression in addition to their own. They even brought back the legacy created by Yuri Kochiyama. Kochiyama was a woman who became friends and a colleague with Malcolm X during the Civil Rights Movement. She helped him recognize that the movement of Black liberation should be multiracial, and that the combination of the races would then help and strengthen power to overcome the oppression. We need to continue on this path, as Asian advocates are continuing to break down the model minority myth. Dispelling the racist Asian stereotypes day to day is also crucial in retaking control of the term. By redefining ourselves as a diverse population, it will force other people within society to view us as nuanced as we see ourselves. While it can be easy to accept that people assume that we are smart or hardworking just because of our race, we have to force them to recognize that the assumption is detrimental to not only our race, but to other minorities as well. Education of the issue is the key. Without awareness, ignorance will continue to pit minorities against each other and therefore disable all minorities from attaining equality.